Hey, it's Juck. At number one, the most beautiful uniform in all of sport. If they brought back the gray stripes, this thing is so far out in front of everybody, you can't touch it. We are not bemoaning the noon kickoff. We are now owning it. It's a badge of honor. We're the lunatic fringe that defines our coach's legacy when it comes to this game. They don't get to define that outside the family. We're cut from a different cloth for Ohioans. Do I want Michigan to beat Oklahoma? No way in hell. I don't know what world I'm living in. This is insane to me. And if you saw my outburst, I apologize. It's showtime now. And welcome into Juck on Bucks. Appreciate you so much for joining me. The respect is over. I'm done. It is almost game time. We are just a couple of days away as the Buckeyes leave in town today, heading out to Washington, Seattle, Washington, a couple of time zones away, which has presented a problem for a lot of Big Ten teams on the East Coast traveling out that direction. The game Saturday, of course, 3:30, and then at 8, we've got the massive doubleheader with Pennsylvania State and Oregon, and Bama and Georgia. And Jedd Fisch talked about that at his press conference this week. And he said that the Ohio State-Washington game is the game of the week because that primetime game is splitting the audience. So CBS at 3:30, splitting the audience, and it makes this the game of the week. Now, it's always the game of the week when the Buckeyes play. We all know that. It might be the attraction of the week. It might get the most eyeballs of the week, but it is not going to be the game of the week. Jellyfish talked about running up the score on his rival. Well, he was asked about it. So he played Washington State, and they won like 59-24 in the Apple Cup. And apparently some of the Wazoo folks were pissed off that he ran up the score at the end. And they asked him, how do you respond to your critics? And he said, I don't.
There's critics out there criticizing you for throwing the ball late in the game and scoring the additional points, piling it on. How do you address those critics?
I don't address the critics. Our job is to play football. Our job is to play offense, and that's what we did.
And I kind of loved it. I don't mind Jedd Fisch. I don't mind him at all. And it's not Jedd Fisch's fault that I have just gotten so much Washington fatigue this week. But I'm going to tell you, man, I'm going to tell you why. As of today, Washington is done for me. Like the gloves are coming off. I've been respectful. I've been kind. I've been playing along because I know a lot of people are concerned about this game. And it's true, they got some weapons, but we're about to talk some real here today, okay? I'm going to put a little perspective on this thing, as well as what the real line is and what the prediction is for this game. We also got a recruit that Ohio State just offered. He is a commit to Washington. He'll be at the game, and I will tell you all about him, as well as a tight end that I think the Buckeyes are moving in on. A running back I spoke to today that Carlos Lachlan is, he went up and saw him last week, and he is a Wisconsin commit. There might be some action there. So we'll talk about those three guys. But when we look at the Ohio State Buckeyes, we look at Ryan Day. Ryan Day, a coach with, well, now since he's won a national championship, all the other accomplishments in his career that were viewed as, failures, like making it to a national championship and losing, or all the times he's made it to the playoffs and not winning a national championship. Now it's national championship, 2 national championship appearances, X playoff appearances, 2 Big Ten championships, etc. Now they're all bullet points of success because that's what happens when you win it all. And Ryan Day is a champion. He has won it all now. And the way Ohio State is treated is certainly nowhere near the way Ohio State was treated under Urban Meyer. Just the feel of the team, the general attitude towards the team. The benefit of the doubt was always given to Urban Meyer and Ohio State. Similar to today, when we see the benefit of the doubt always given to Kirby Smart, but it's much more than Kirby Smart. The benefit of the doubt also goes to guys like Dan Lanning. It goes to guys like Steve Sarkisian. Why is it that those guys get the benefit of the doubt and Ryan Day, who's literally won big games, neither of them have, they get it? I don't know. I don't know if it's a personality thing. I don't know if it's Ohio State fatigue. I don't know what it is, but let me take you back for a second. Georgia wins the national championship in 21 and 22. Georgia and Ohio State played within one play of a national championship in 2022. Georgia happened to win it. That didn't make either team better than the other or not. They won the game that night. And then Georgia turned over the entire roster. Everybody left. The next year in 2023, they had a new starting quarterback. They had a new offensive coordinator. But of course, they had great athletes, right? They lost the previous ones. They're going to reload. They recruit great every year. Of course, they got a great coaching staff. It's Georgia under Kirby Smart. They're led by a guy who just won a national championship in his 8th year in 2023. Stability at the top of the program. Everything's there. Everything's there to have another successful season in 23. Does this sound familiar? It should. What did folks think of Georgia all year? They opened up the season against Tennessee Martin and Ball State. They won 48-7 and 45-3 in those first 2 games. Then in their first SEC contest, South Carolina. They were a 26.5-point favorite against South Carolina. They won by 10. Then after that 3-game hell stretch of Tennessee Martin, Ball State, and South Carolina, they played the University of Alabama Birmingham, UAB, and they beat UAB 49-21. And then they went to take on Auburn on the Plains. They were 14.5-point favorites. They won by 7. At Kentucky, they were 14.5-point favorites. They won by 38. At Vanderbilt, they were 32.5-point favorites. They won by 17. 14-point favorites against Florida. They won by 23. 12th-ranked Missouri, 14.5-point favorites. They won by 9. 9th-ranked Ole Miss, 10.5-point favorites. They won by 35. 18th-ranked Tennessee, 10.5-point favorite. They won by 28. Georgia Tech, they were 19.5-point favorites. They won by 8. The entire schedule. The entire flipping schedule, they were favored by double digits in every damn game against the 9th-ranked team, the 18th-ranked team, the 12th-ranked team, double-digit favorites in all of them. Ohio State, number 1 in the country, has already beaten the number 3 team in the country with a brand new quarterback and those brand new coordinators, beat up on their cream puffs as they're supposed to. And now, in their first road contest, their very first one, against a team with a second-year coach that was 6-7 last year, a team that just lost its starting middle linebacker, whose best corner is a game-time decision at best. If he plays, he'll be really dinged up. A team that just let a fella named Zebby Eckhouse throw for 70% accuracy and drops 277 and 2 touchdowns on him. And Ohio State is an 8.5-point favorite. Now, the odds makers gave Ohio State a little bit of credit here. They didn't make it a single digit. It opened at 11.5, 10.5, depending on where you looked. It's the general public. The general public bet it down to 8.5. So no respect whatsoever, not from the general public, certainly not from the media. It's felt way off to me from the beginning. And I thought, what am I missing here about this line? What is it that I'm missing? It turns out it should have felt really odd to me, because I just found out that we've only seen this happen 2 times in the last 20 years. Just twice. Once a decade does this happen. Once a decade does the number 1 team play an unranked team and the line is single digits. Once a decade. And that alone makes this incredibly disrespectful, to be quite honest. What are the other 2 times that this happened? How about this? The 2012 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Remember that team? They just kept winning, and they were undefeated, so they were number 1. And we all knew it was a full of crap team. And when they played USC, they were 5-point favorites. This is the Notre Dame team that Ohio State should have played in the national championship. They didn't get to. Alabama got to. I went to that game. It was not much of a game. Looking at that high school-looking Notre Dame team on the sideline compared to that Alabama team down in Miami that night was quite an experience. I'll never forget it. But Notre Dame did win that SC game, 22-13. The only other time this ever happened was 2014. Florida State was the number 1 team. They were favored by 7.5 against Florida. 2 times, now 3, the number 1 team, the number 1 Ohio State Buckeyes, single-digit favorites over Washington. And nationally, all the talk is about Washington, their quarterback, their running back, their wide receiver. They're so giddy that these guys, they think, got a shot to knock off the Buckeyes. So excited that they're literally talking about an Ohio State game and talking about somebody else's wide receivers, and not even multiple, just 1. Ohio State has the 2 best wide receivers in the country, catching balls from the most accurate quarterback in the country. And I don't know what it is, man. Ohio State fatigue, excitement that somebody could potentially knock them off. Maybe they're just bored. They've seen Ohio State, been there, done that. But this is not the way people talked about Georgia in 23. It's not the way they ever talk about Georgia. They never talked about Bama like this. I listened to Brian Hartline last Tuesday. This is a guy who looks like and talks like he knows what's going to happen here. He doesn't have any fear in his voice. I don't think he's going to have much of a chore. He knows he's about to dice this Washington defense up. Their defensive line, the four-man front, the highest win rate for a four-man front. Okay. Again, you are a really good team when you go out and do what you're supposed to do, and they've done that so far. They did it against Colorado State. They did it against Washington State. They did it against whoever the hell the third team was, Cal State Fullerton. They did what they were supposed to do. And everybody has gotten way, way out in front of their skis on who these guys are. They're good. That's good that they're good. Their four-man front or five-man front, bring it on. Because they're not touching Julian Sayin. Not with this offensive line. The battle here is strength on strength. And when I say strength on strength, I mean Washington's team strength, their offense, Ohio State's team strength, their defense. Strength on strength. But the difference here is the strength for Ohio State is just this much better, the Ohio State defense, this much better than the Ohio State offense. And on Washington, their offense is at chasms different than their defense. They're not a complete team. They've got a really good offense. The defense sucks, and it's about to get shown. Now, the other difference here is the Washington offense is the strength of the Washington team, and the Ohio State defense is the strength of the Ohio State team, the number one team in the country. Every week heading into the game, I got questions. I got questions about the team, the players, the coach. And I go through the questions. And then on the Juck on Bucks post-game show, I answer the questions. What are the questions going in that I have? How did they answer them coming out? I want to go over my questions here. And then when I'm done, I'm going to give you the real line to this game. And I'm going to tell you if the Buckeyes cover the real line or not. All right, let's get to question number one. Can the Buckeyes break the West Coast curse? Since the Big Ten expanded, teams traveling from the East to the West have only won 3 times, and 2 of those were at UCLA, which barely counts. Then we saw Penn State play USC last year in an awesome game. You probably remember it. And Drew Aller threw for 250 yards. That was the last time Drew Aller threw for 250 plus yards. Believe that or not, that's the truth. That was a long time ago. And that guy is leading the team that's supposed to be winning the national championship, number 3 in the country right now. But I also gained respect for James Franklin that game. The Penn State players were running around with the flag, and they were going to go try to plant it in the middle of the field. He stopped them from doing that. And I thought that was a really classy move because that's over the line. And a coach should stop his players from doing something like that. Anyway, the Buckeyes obviously went out and lost at Oregon. We saw Michigan go out and lose at Washington. And we've seen others. But can they break the West Coast curse? And number 2, can they get over the bye week hangover? When they went out and lost that game at Oregon and lost Josh Simmons last year, they came home, had a bye week, and then they came back and played Nebraska. You probably remember that Nebraska game as well. It was not just a game that was tight that had to be won towards the end of the game on a drive by Will Howard in the 4th. But the energy and the lack of juice from the senior leadership was like they didn't even want to be there. And it was just so strange, particularly in the first half. And the first bye that they had was early in the year. This was after week 2. And then they played Marshall coming back. In the first, quarter and a half of that game felt very lackluster. What's the most important thing of this game at Washington? It's starting off fast. So they've got to get over the lethargy here coming off the bye. I suspect they will. This is a sufficiently amped game. Remember, Nebraska had just gotten waxed by Indiana like 56-7 the week before. So that game, which we thought at one point Nebraska might come in undefeated, really lost its luster. Maybe that had something to do with it. That and the single worst offensive line performance we've ever seen by an Ohio State lineman. But question number 1, the West Coast curse. Question number 2, the bye week hangover. Can they overcome those? Question number 3, offensive aggression. Coming out of this game, what will we say about Brian Hartline's game plan and execution? What are we going to say? Was Brian Hartline aggressive? Was he passive? I think he needs to be aggressive here. I think it is very important in this offense that they do not get bogged down. If the running game's not working, just beating their head against the wall. Take advantage of your weapons and do what you got to do to advance the ball. Running on first down 80% of the time when it's not working, just to keep them honest. It's just, there's nothing more maddening. Yet we see it time and time again in Ohio State offenses where the running game isn't working early in the season. There's no way to just beat your way through it. Sometimes you just got to throw the ball and win the game. And I think that Brian Hartline also needs to dial up shots. When we looked at Will Howard last year, what set him apart, what made him a little different, aside from his accuracy and his leadership, was his ability to run and threaten to run. Julian Sayin, not playing like that, even though I think he could a little bit more. He's not gonna. But what sets him apart is that sweet, sweet deep ball, man. This dude, 9 balls this year, over 20 yards, 9 for 9, 5 to the post, and 2 to each flag. That is fantastic. That's averaging 3 a game. And what is the over-under? Question number 4. Deep shots by Julian Sayin, over-under 3.5. I'm going to take the over. I think Brian Hartline's going to have a very aggressive game plan here because you would expect them not to. You would expect them not to with the freshman. I keep calling him. He is technically a freshman. The first-year quarterback, Julian Sayin, in his first road start. How much do they trust him? We're going to find out a lot. Ryan Day historically has kind of eased his quarterbacks in. I think they trust him quite a bit now. Ice in his veins. He's got ice in his veins. He's a different caliber of cat, and I think they're seeing that. So they're going to put a little more on his plate. They're going to let him throw those balls up. And keep in mind, these guys are playing a lot of man, and it feels like a big Carnell Tate game. I think we'll get a couple of deep shots to him. Number 5, missed tackles this year. Washington just played Washington State. Washington State in that game missed 17 tackles. Now, that's a ton of tackles missed. I thought maybe Washington was the reason that they were missing all these tackles. Their elusiveness. Damon Williams is very elusive. Jonah Coleman is tough to bring down, the type of guy that, top 3 in yards after contact. Well, I went and looked at their prior game, and Washington State also missed 17 tackles against North Texas and gave up 59 points. So it wasn't really Washington, but that's not to say Washington can't cause a lot of missed tackles. So how many of the Buckeyes missed this year? Well, 17 for the starters. 17 tackles they've missed. And if we look at all 3 games, they're pretty much evenly spaced out. It wasn't like they missed them all at Texas and then locked it down. So that's about their average, right? 6 missed tackles. So we'll set the over-under at 6. If they don't miss more than 6 tackles, they win the game. Number 6, Edrick Houston. Edrick Houston, we came into this year thinking Edrick Houston and Caden McDonald were the lockdown pair. It was the depth we needed to worry about in the interior of the defensive line. In fact, most Buckeye fans were so sure that Edrick Houston was going to be that kind of guy that I did a poll in probably June. Edrick Houston and Caden McDonald, or Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry, which 2 do you trust more to be in the more impactful group? And like 75% said the interior guys. Now, what do we have to base our opinion of Edrick Houston on? Was there anything that he showed us his freshman year to make us think so highly of him, other than the fact that he's big, strong, smart, 5-star, great personality, and just seems like the type of guy that ends up being very successful? I don't think he flashed his freshman year in a way that I can look back and think like, oh yeah, I remember that play and that play. There was a few here and there, but there really was nothing to lead us to believe that he was just going to make this big jump other than faith. It was just faith because we've seen it before with guys like him. Well, last week against Ohio was a really bad game, and we talked about this after the game. A lot of people, after I did that episode and I kind of showed you what I was seeing on that all 22, put in the comments that he is still injured. And Ryan Day was asked that at his press conference yesterday. Ryan Day was asked if he was injured, and Ryan Day doesn't ever answer if somebody's injured. His immediate response was consistency, and he probably said consistency 4 or 5 times. And then he said consistency about everybody, right? He wasn't singling him out, but he was giving the answer. He hasn't been consistent. And when we look back at the Grambling game, we remember that big hug Patricia gave him before the game. It was overly long. That was the game that he didn't start. So right before the game, they embrace like that. Then he doesn't start. Then he comes in, gets a penalty, gets yanked. Then he gets another penalty, gets yanked. Then he plays the Ohio game, which was the worst game he's ever played, against Mac lineman. Couldn't hold his spot in a one-on-one, let alone a double team. Couldn't get off a block. It was just a lousy, lousy game. A night he'll want to forget fast. He probably already has. I think what's going on is not an injury. I mean, let's be honest here. If you think that the coaches thought he was injured at all, that they would play him in for Grambling in Ohio, like, I don't know. Maybe we're just not thinking this through, right? Are they going to stick a player in that they're counting on injured to play against those 2 cream puffs that they can beat without half their lineup? No, they're not going to do that. It's possible that he's really hurting and he's not leading on and not telling him the truth, and it's affecting his play. I think more so than that, it's his confidence. Can he make some plays against Washington in a big spot to build it back? Because while he may not have been an impact player as a freshman, he wasn't the guy that we saw against Ohio. The confidence is lacking. He's got to build it up. So number 6, Edrick Houston. Number 7, my buddy Dan put this in the group chat last night. I hadn't even thought about it. We have seen nothing but Arvell Reese being the spy for this team. We saw it against Arch. We saw it against Grambling. We saw it against Miami. Damon Williams is a different type of dude. Now, they've got, obviously, experience playing a guy who can go out and get you some. But this is a different type of cat. And Dan posed, I don't think it's going to be Arvell. I think it's going to be Caleb. Now, I'm not saying if I agree with that or not, but it is an interesting thought because we have seen Caleb do this before, and he's done an excellent job at it. Damon Williams, a little faster. Could we potentially see Caleb in that spot or maybe some kind of split? I don't know. I think it's something interesting to keep our eyes out for. Number 8, what is the carry split? Ryan Day was asked about the 3 backs by our buddy Dylan Davis. Basically, Dylan was asking him, how hard is it to get 3 guys in a rhythm? And let me just play Ryan Day's answer here.
Right after the game, the OU game, you talked about kind of trying to find that rhythm for 3 running backs. Is it possible that, like, maybe in a position where rhythm's an important thing, and maybe there are too many focus in the fire trying to play 3 running backs and get 3 running back carries, or is?
No, it's a good question. How do you get everybody into a rhythm of the game? Each player is different. You kind of saw last year how we did it. Some guys got hot that game. We played them, but it's a long season. So we're sort of looking at it that way, that we need, all the running backs throughout the season. And, however that shakes out, we'll see each week. We'll look at the game plan. We'll look at where we are. We'll look at the health of everybody and then figure out who deserves carries. There's no question that, Bo did flash last game. And so we're going to keep building on that as we move forward.
There was a question or maybe a thought that this was going to be like an even split between the 3 of these backs. And from that answer, I don't think that's the case. And I think that it is pretty hopeful that Bo was the only name he brought up. Now, he was asked about James Peoples later on regarding the Ohio game. And he said, yes, he did better in the Ohio game. And he did do better in the second half of the Ohio game when they were running counter and there were lanes, this wide for him to run through. Each of these backs, he has said, have a different skill about them. And I think that when we look at pass pro, CJ Donaldson is excellent. And he goes about it like a mad dog, and that's a great thing. And on those passing downs, he can also catch the ball out of the backfield. When we look at down by the goal line, I don't think that CJ Donaldson is giving them what they're looking for. And keep in mind, they're seeing what we're seeing. They've not seen Bo down there. This is not something that they do in practice. And he talked about, you have to use your imagination in practice as a back or as a coach looking at a back because they're not taking him to the ground. So that leads me to believe Bo Jackson is going to get those opportunities down by the goal line. If you got Bo, who is faster than both of them, potentially better when it comes to yards after contact and the physicality, it seems to me like he's just better all around than either guy. So where does that leave people's role if pass pro is the one thing that somebody's better at Bo at, and it's CJ Donaldson? Where does people's fit in? I don't know. But it would seem to me that the best split would probably be a split where it is maybe 50-50 or 60-40, with Bo getting the 50 or the 60 and divvying up what's left between the two of them. And I think that's probably something around the spread we're going to see here in big games. Maybe not in games that aren't consequential, games that'll, 3 touchdown spread kind of games where they know going in that they're going to be able to control the line of scrimmage a little better. Maybe we're going to see a little more of an even split, or maybe we'll see a little more of the guy who's not getting a lot of carries. But when it comes to a game like this, even a game that is in such a big, crucial spot where it's, makes you nervous to play a freshman, it's just such a noticeable difference how much the running game looks better with Jackson that I don't think that we're going to see a lot of pitter-patting around here. Feelings be damned, that's the guy that's playing. Now, where am I at? Number nine. Oh, you guys are going to love this one. CJ Hicks snaps. CJ Hicks has averaged 15 snaps on the year. CJ Hicks, as you know, I have said all throughout the offseason, this is not going to be a consequential move on this defense, him moving from linebacker to edge. Many of you have said, you're wrong, he's going to be our Abdul Carter. And so far, through the season, up until now, he's got 4 tackles, 4 hurries, 1 missed tackle. He has made some good plays. He's made some very not so good plays, but all in all, I think he's made the transition better than I expected he would. Certainly hasn't been impactful yet on the defense, but I'm wondering if maybe this isn't the perfect game for him to make that impact. And I think that he is going to make an impact. This is a game that I don't want to see a lot of Bo Atkinson. I want to see a lot of Kenyatta, and I want to see a lot of Hicks playing end. And Caden Curry talked on Wednesday night at his little press junket about caging him in the pocket. And that is a phrase Buckeye fans hate to hear, the old cage rush. But that's the perfect way to play this guy. They want to cage him in, outside contain, send him through the middle where there's help. And when they do, when he takes off, you want a guy like Hicks and Kenyatta Jackson getting off their blocks and pursuing him from behind. So when he makes his hits, you've got men in pursuit that are coming full head of steam to not just bring him down, but bring him down hard. And I got a feeling that CJ Hicks, this is his game where we're going to see him rack up a couple of tackles and really show the benefit of having a fast defensive end out there. So, number 9, CJ Hicks carries over under 15. I'm taking the over. Number 10, Lorenzo Styles. Now, that was on my list, but Ryan Day just said in his press conference on Wednesday at the Woody that he thinks that Lorenzo is full. No, he said he's full go. So, even if he is full go, there's been some questions that maybe it's a better situation for Devin playing corner at times and moving Jermaine Matthews up to nickel. You definitely want a really fast, sure tackling nickel in this game. I was wondering about Bryce West. We have not seen Bryce. Bryce is really fast, faster than Lorenzo, one of the fastest guys on the team. And I don't know if this would be the position where you would want to insert him, as he hasn't played much at all. But might we see the other package anyway with Devin Sanchez at corner, Jermaine Matthews at nickel, even if Lorenzo is totally healthy? I don't know. He had been playing good, but he has not been, Lorenzo hasn't been picked on by a good slot receiver. That was really the first time we saw it against Ohio when he gave up that touchdown. So I got my eye on that. Number 11, is this the Brandon Inniss game? The slot receiver for Washington State torched Washington with 7 receptions last week. Julian Sayin has gotten very comfortable, not with his slot or his tight end as a young quarterback, which is, the most logical thing. He's gotten more comfortable with Jeremiah, which is wonderful, right? Like, if this guy's going to get comfortable with someone, you want it to be JJ, and he's hitting him in short routes, intermediate routes, of course, long routes. At the same time, this looks like a game where you could potentially make some hay with your slot. Is this the game Inniss breaks out? I think he's been vindicated. I do. He was definitely open. The ball wasn't going his way against Ohio. I know that he plays with an edge, and I know that he's heard all this stuff, and he definitely is going to want to make it happen. I also know that he's probably not the best receiver in slot receiver as it comes to catching the ball and running after the catch. That would be Bryson Rodgers. I know everybody wants to see Mylan Graham. He doesn't play the slot. He could, and he would dominate at it, I'm sure, in the receiving game. But neither of them are going to do what I want most out of a slot in this offense, and that is be a pass-catching threat, which Inniss is, and block really well. Block really well and take it seriously. And he loves to do that. He's a regulator out there. Is this the game he gets rewarded for all his regulating? I think it just might be. And number 12, 3 in a row for Bo. I think I saw Tony Gerdeman write the other day that I don't know how long it's been, forever since we've seen a running back in his first 2 starts rush for 100 yards both games. Bo's done that. Can he make it 3? I don't know that anybody's done that before. We'll have to talk to stats and information over at BuckeyeHuddle.com to figure that out. By the way, over at BuckeyeHuddle.com, I wrote an article about Jaden Williams today. Check that out if you want to. An awesome article over at BuckeyeHuddle.com. So those are our questions heading into the game. Now, let's talk about the line. The line opened at 10.5 and or 11.5. The real line of the game is 14.5 points. 14.5 points. Ohio State minus 14.5 is the actual line of the game that I've decided on. And the other day, after listening to Ryan Day, I made my score prediction. 31-17 Buckeyes. There you have it. There you have it. From the mouth of a fired up Juck, 31-17 Buckeyes. The spread, 14.5. That means the Buckeyes don't cover. They don't cover. They're not going to cover the real spread of 14.5 because Washington is going to come back and cut that thing. It's going to be 31-10. They're going to come score a touchdown and make it look closer than it did. But this is going to be a fairly dominant win for Ohio State. Everybody's going to be very impressed by the defense and then forget the following week. And they'll probably say Washington sucks after this. Then they're going to go on and win 8 games. And people are going to start talking about them like a potential playoff contender next year because they are. And they're going in the right direction. They're not there yet. And they're playing a dominant team. Ohio State, far and away, the number 1 team in the country this year. It's not Miami. It's not Oregon, though I do think they'll win at Penn State. Now, some news on a couple of recruits here as I pull up a little picture. First, a shout out to our dude, Brock Boyd. Brock Boyd, he's become my favorite wide receiver in this 2026 class. Brock Boyd of South Lake Carroll High School, a high school that has had tons of prolific wide receivers come through it, including Brock's brother, who's lighting it up at Utah State this year. Brock just set the all-time career yardage list, over 3,000 yards. He's got like 8 games when we count the playoffs to put that thing so far out of reach, nobody's ever touching it. So congrats to Brock. And this is Rashawn Duncan, a 3-star cornerback out of Oakland, California, who is committed to Washington at 6'1", 185. Now, he is going to be at the game on Saturday as the Buckeyes come in and beat up the school he's committed to. And Tim Walton, who just offered him, will be there and probably holler at him. I like the sound of the way this one's going here. We talked about a couple of the other guys yesterday at corner, the guys at Ohio State's trying to flip. Obviously, Danny Odom, one of those guys. He's committed to Nebraska, getting a lot of money. Now, Washington's not cheap. Washington is spending a lot of money. Washington State accuses them of spending $30 million on their roster. We know how accurate it is when it's coming from a rival, so who knows what it really is. But they've got money, and they're not cheap. Nonetheless, I like the sound of that. Amari Latimer, 4-star running back out of Georgia, 6 foot 200, a really interesting runner, number 334 in the country, the 22nd ranked running back. And I'll show you some film if things get a little, pick up a little more. But right now, you've got Favorite Key in the class. It didn't look like there was going to be another back. Latimer is committed to Wisconsin. So out of Georgia, committed to Wisconsin. Carlos Loughlin went up and saw him. And that was last week. Went and saw him, talked to him obviously quite a bit. Doesn't have an offer yet. He is, I don't want to say, he kind of has a really physical running style, and it's really kind of interesting is all I can describe it. It's effective. He kind of runs straight up and down like CJ Donaldson. But he cuts a little better. It's just an interesting style, and he runs with an attitude. Really, really physical guy. I think he's bigger than that 200 he's listed at in there. So interesting stuff. Obviously, hey, if you bring him in the class, the more the merrier, as far as I'm concerned. At this time, when you were talking about the opportunity for guys who, when it doesn't work out, they can just they can go leave with no consequence, no harm, no foul. And the potential that maybe he's something special when he gets here. So I'm all in for them taking as many chances as they want, because they are talking about only going up to 90 scholarships. The closer they get to 105, the more you swing, the more you hit. So yeah, go ahead. I'm all for it. But we'll look at his film if things move on a little further. And one more, as there is a tight end that Keenan Bailey seems to be really fond of. Hasn't offered him yet, but Nick Lauder, out of Lebanon, 6'5", 225, 3-star tight end. And yeah, it's a lot of 3 stars. He's not a super highly rated guy. If Keenan likes him, I like him, and Keenan likes him, and he's a really nice kid. So there might be some movement there. He has come and visited, and right now, he is committed to Louisville. So he's not actively, talking about wanting to flip or anything. And Keenan hasn't offered him. But it seems like there might be some movement there. So that is where we're at right now on the recruiting front. And that is where we're at with our show. So I do appreciate you guys joining me. Tomorrow, we will do our rundown and our picks. And I would love it if you guys would have a fantastic day. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a good one. Juck 'em Bucks out.